size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. If we just look at size for a second, we can see, does size really determine your value? The argument might go something like this: the embryo is tiny, therefore insignificant. But if size is what determines our value, we're in big trouble. Look around you. Everyone is different sizes. If the embryo is tiny and doesn't matter, logic demands that we're consistent across the board and say that smaller human beings have less value than larger ones. And that just doesn't make any sense. There's no grounding for human equality there. Intrinsic value is the only answer that makes sense at the end of the day. Level of development. The unborn are less developed than we are, therefore less deserving of a right to life. My daughter Neely is 8.5 years old. She's about to be 9, and she doesn't yet have a fully working reproductive system. She hasn't developed it yet. But can I kill her because she's less developed than me? No way. That makes no sense. But if you're going to grant it here, logic says, you got to grant it down the road as well. Environment, that is where you're located, what does that have to do with what you are? You don't roll over in bed at night and become somebody new. In fact, you could fly to the moon and you would still be you, and there are great arguments as to why that is the case. But what it does tell us is that an 8 to 9 inch journey down the birth canal doesn't make a non-valuable, non-human entity into a valuable human entity just like that. If that's true, logic says, be careful if you move to a new address. And degree of dependency. The unborn are dependent on their mothers for survival, and so they don't have a right to life, the argument goes. My mom is diabetic. She is dependent upon her medicine to survive. Without it, she can't process sugars on her own, and her body won't be able to do that. She might die. I can't kill her because of her dependency. But logic says if you're going to grant it here, you've got to grant it down the road as well. And these types of instrumental value answers create spectrums of value because all of these types of things come in degrees between different human beings. Intrinsic value is the only answer that makes sense at the end of the day.
The science of embryology shows us that from the earliest stages of development, in other words, when you were at the 2-cell stage, you were a distinct, living, and whole human being. You didn't come from an embryo, you once were one. There's no essential difference between that embryo you once were and the young adult you are today that would justify killing you back then. You're larger, but body size doesn't give you value. You're more developed, but we don't think 2-year-olds that aren't as developed as 20-year-olds have less of a right to life. You're in a different environment. You're out of the womb, you were once in. But I would argue where you are has no bearing on who you are. When you left home this morning and came to class, you didn't stop being you. And finally, degree of dependency. Sure, you depended on the mother for survival, your mother in your case, but dependency on another human being is not a good reason for saying we can kill you. Let me ask you a question. Are you starting to see that these arguments are persuasive?